Hi, these are the most interesting historical photos that I could find. Let's go. On the 28th of March 1994, police took cover outside Shell House as IFP protesters ran through a street covered with dropped shoes and debris. This became one of the most chilling images from the final days before South Africa's first democratic election. On March 2, 1998 in Pristina, an ethnic Albanian protester struggled to breathe on the pavement as tear gas filled the street. Behind him, a police officer ran through the smoke, freezing one of the starkest images from Kosovo's rising unrest. On October 27, 1945, warships filled the Hudson River for the first Navy Day after the Second World War. Under a dark sky, New York watched one of the largest Victory Fleet displays ever seen. This 1948 photo shows Maharaja Ramanuj Pratap Singh Deo standing with 3 Asiatic cheetahs in Korea State, now linked to the last known group photographed in India. The Asiatic cheetah vanished from India soon after. 1941, Italian CR-42 biplanes flew low over troops in North Africa during the Desert Campaign. The CR-42 was already outdated by then, but Italy still used it in combat across the war. On December 26, 1943, a Coast Guard crewed LST carried Marines, vehicles, fuel, and supplies toward the invasion of Cape Gloucester in New Britain. The packed deck shows how landing ships moved an entire assault force to a Japanese-held shore. During the Munich crisis in 1938, Neville Chamberlain met Adolf Hitler as Britain pushed the deal that handed Czechoslovakia's Sudetenland to Germany. Czech officials reacted with fury. In 1917, Australian soldiers wore gas masks in trenches near Ypres during the Battle of Passchendaele in Belgium. Poison gas had become so common on the Western Front that troops often had to move and fight with masks on. In May 1958, British tanks, trucks, and armored vehicles from the Second World War were stacked in a Hamburg scrapyard awaiting recycling. Just 13 years after victory, machines that helped defeat Germany were already reduced to scrap metal. On May 27, 1972, George Carlin was arrested in Wisconsin after performing his routine about banned words on television. The case became one of the most famous clashes between comedy, censorship, and free speech in the United States. In 1950, Marilyn Monroe posed in the Hollywood Hills for publicity photos tied to a Stars and Stripes feature. The article called her the girl most able to defrost Alaska, showing how studios were already turning her into a national sensation. Near the end of the Second World War, this modified Toyota GB truck was found in Mindanao as a Japanese aircraft starter unit. It shows how ordinary civilian vehicles were rebuilt into frontline support machines when equipment was scarce. This 1986 PR photo at RAAF base. Amberley shows an F-111C staged with a huge full weapons display by 6 squadron armament crews. Almost every armorer and many aircrew on the base were photographed in front of the same setup. In November 1944, a B-24 Liberator of the 464th Bomb Group flew through German anti-aircraft fire over Europe. Photos like this are rare because they caught the bomber inside real flak bursts, the main killer of heavy bombers over defended targets. In 1933, Winston Churchill and Albert Einstein were photographed together at Chartwell during Einstein's first months in exile from Germany. At that time, Einstein was urging British leaders to help more Jewish refugees escape the new regime. In about 1994, 2 men played chess in Hrasno during the siege of Sarajevo beside a burned apartment block. The siege lasted nearly 4 years and turned ordinary acts like this into a form of daily survival. In 1925, strongman Zygmunt Breitbart performed a circus act while supporting a heavy platform loaded with men and a motorcycle. Breitbart was famous across Europe for bending iron and pulling chains apart. In 1920, some Ford Model T owners in Florida could buy a dealer-installed high-water kit that raised the car for flooded roads and swamps. This photo shows how early drivers were already modifying ordinary cars for extreme local conditions. On January 31, 1990, Boris Yeltsin visited the first McDonald's in the Soviet Union on the day it opened in Moscow. The restaurant served more than 30,000 customers that day, and the line stretched for kilometers. In 1998, conservators in the United States carefully restored the original Star-Spangled Banner on a massive custom table. The flag that inspired the national anthem was so large and fragile that it had to be treated section by section. In 1995, Grozny was left in ruins after the assault, with whole city blocks burned and shattered. The battle destroyed much of the Chechen capital and became one of the most devastating urban campaigns in post-Soviet Russia. In the 1990s, street shell game scammers were a familiar sight in Russia, pulling crowds with a trick designed for people to lose fast. The game looked simple, but the operator usually controlled every move. In 1931, makeup artist Jack Pierce built Boris Karloff's Frankenstein look by hand with layered prosthetics and grease paint. That flat head design became one of the most recognizable monster images in film history. In 1939, the Miss Unsafe Brakes contest turned car safety promotion into a beauty pageant in the United States. It showed how even a deadly road hazard could be sold to the public as spectacle. In 1926, the Wampus baby stars were promoted as Hollywood's most promising new actresses by motion picture publicists. The yearly list became an early studio machine for turning unknown performers into national stars. On December 8, 1917, in New York City, drivers had to dig their cars out after plows buried them under heavy snow. Early cars already struggled in winter, but a storm like this could turn one parked vehicle into a frozen mound overnight. On the 25th of March, 1941, Pilot Officer Kennedy inspected his wrecked Vickers Wellesley at Agordat after Italian Fiat CR 42 fighters hit it over Karen. His gunner, Sergeant German, was fatally wounded. In 1945, Cairo, women were photographed using hookahs in a street-side setting. The image captures how hookah use was part of everyday social life in Egypt, not just a private pastime. In the 1970s, cars lined up at Chicago gas stations during the fuel shortage that reshaped daily life in the United States. The crisis turned gasoline into a rationed necessity, with long waits becoming a normal part of driving. In 1938, at the Naples Naval Review, submarines of the Regia Marina fired their deck guns in perfect unison during a staged fleet display. The review also featured synchronized surfacing, showing how Italy turned naval discipline into public spectacle. In October 1945, rows of surplus United States Navy carrier aircraft sat at Iroquois Point, Oahu, waiting to be scrapped after Japan's surrender. Many were nearly new, showing how quickly the war's huge air fleet became excess. This photo shows a B-24 Liberator losing part of its wing during a bombing raid in the Second World War. Damage like this usually meant almost no chance of recovery because heavy bombers depended on full wing lift to stay in the air. In 1955, Emory and Mrs. Harrison of Jonesboro, Tennessee, were photographed with their 13 sons. The family was reported as the largest all-male family in the United States at the time. On the 25th of March 1940 in Lille, France, platoon commanders trained in anti-gas clothing at a junior leaders' school. The bulky suits show how seriously armies still expected chemical warfare at the start of the Second World War. On March 29, 1942, RAF Bomber Command heavily bombed Lübeck in one of the first major British air attacks to severely damage a German city. The raid marked a turning point by showing that large-scale area bombing could devastate Germany's historic urban centers. In 1967, United States Navy SEALs rappelled from a UH-1 Huey into the South Vietnam jungle to set an ambush below. The photo shows how helicopters let small teams drop straight into dense terrain that was almost impossible to reach fast on foot. In 1945, Soviet soldiers stood beside a heavy gun in front of the shattered Reichstag after the Battle of Berlin. The ruined building became one of the clearest symbols of Nazi Germany's collapse. On April 9, 1942, American and Filipino prisoners began the Bataan Death March near Mariveles after the surrender of Bataan in the Philippines. Tens of thousands were forced to march for days with little food or water, and many never survived. In the 1940s, some cars ran on wood gas when gasoline was scarce, using a rear-mounted gasifier fed with firewood. The system turned burning wood into engine fuel, making the car part vehicle and part mobile furnace. In 1920, Baltimore, a boy posed on a homemade wooden bicycle with solid disc wheels and a hand-built frame. The photo shows how children turned scrap and simple tools into working machines long before factory bikes were common in every home. In the early 1990s in Sarajevo, a street sign warned pedestrians about an active shooter nearby during the siege. The city was hit so often from hidden firing positions that some roads became known as sniper alleys. The Palace of Soviets was a planned Soviet megastructure meant to rise in Moscow with a giant Lenin statue on top. If built, it would have been one of the tallest buildings on Earth and the ultimate symbol of Stalin-era power. This early British face defense device from 1915 to 1916 shows how crude the first attempts at battlefield face protection looked in the First World War. It covered the entire face with a narrow slit for vision. James Van Allen discovered the radiation belt named after him in 1958, and on the same day agreed to help the U.S. military nuke it to study its effects. The experiment was later humorously described as, "Someone discovered something and immediately decided to blow it up." In 1958, scientist John Calhoun created a utopia for mice with unlimited food, ideal living conditions, and no predators. However, by day 600, all of them were dead, illustrating the consequences of overpopulation and the collapse of society under perfect conditions. This is a photo of Baltimore in 1946, showing residents scrubbing the white marble steps, a trademark of the city. People took great pride in keeping their steps clean and bright, often making this daily task part of their routine. This image shows participants in a parade celebrating the 2500th anniversary of the Persian Empire in Persepolis, Iran, 1971. The men are dressed in traditional Persian warrior attire, a symbolic homage to the grandeur of the ancient empire. The image depicts a fighter plane from the U.S. Air Force that continued flying for miles after its pilot was forced to eject during a training mission in 1970. The aircraft eventually landed gently in a farmer's field, suffering only minor damage. The image shows people running in the aftermath of the tsunami that hit Hawaii on April 1, 1946. Many residents ignored the tidal warnings, assuming they were part of an April Fool's prank. The disaster killed 159 people and caused $26 million in damages. The image features a line of men, likely during the early 20th century. The accompanying text refers to a proposed 1916 amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The amendment suggested that before the U.S. could declare war, it would need a nationwide public vote. The image depicts an incident from a 1946 Tennessee election where corrupt officials used deputies to arrest voters and hide ballots in jail. Returning World War II veterans, frustrated with the corruption, armed themselves, surrounded the jail, and forced the officials to surrender. The image shows UH-1 Huey helicopters, a crucial asset during the Vietnam War. These helicopters, capable of carrying 11 to 14 troops, were essential for air mobility and troop transportation. It would take up to 5 Hueys to deliver a full platoon. The image shows a classroom of Kurdish girls in Iran, taken shortly before the revolution. The photo highlights the educational atmosphere before significant cultural and political changes took place in the country. The photo shows sled dogs in New York after their race to deliver diphtheria antitoxin to Nome in 1925. Togo, the leader, and the other dogs saved the city from a deadly outbreak. The image shows Peter Sellers with his second wife, Britt Eklund, just after his hospital admission in 1964. Sellers, known for his iconic roles and mimicry, was a celebrated British actor and comedian. This photo shows a Japanese paratrooper from the 3rd Raiding Regiment of the Imperial Japanese Army preparing for a mission to the Burauen airfields in Leyte, December 6, 1944. The soldier is equipped for combat during World War II. This photo captures an Army cameraman in Athens, April 1941, as he photographs the Parthenon. The image reflects the historical period of World War II during Axis occupation. The photo shows Dolores Pullard Wright, a famous sideshow performer known for her extraordinary height of 7 feet 9 inches due to a pituitary gland tumor. She was recognized in the Guinness Book of World Records and was a beloved figure who enjoyed teaching. This image captures a B-25B Mitchell bomber taking off from the USS Hornet during the Doolittle Raid on April 18, 1942. The raid targeted Japan's home islands, marking a pivotal moment in World War II. This photo shows a class from a rural Missouri school in the 1920s with many students barefoot. The image reflects the simplicity and modesty of rural life during that era. This photo shows Italian L-3 tanks from the 61st Battalion in North Africa, dated November 16, 1940. The image belonged to Umberto Alfano, who was captured at Bardia in January 1941. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito in Twins, 1988. Schwarzenegger earned over $40 million, his highest from a single film, after agreeing to take no upfront pay and sharing 40% of the profits. A U.S. soldier stationed in Nagasaki in January 1953 before heading to Korea poses with a Japanese family. The photo captures a moment of connection in the post-war era. British soldiers man a barricade in Bailleul on April 15, 1918, trying to slow the German advance. The town fell just hours later during World War I. This photo from March 29, 1926, shows Mrs. Rita Fagg standing next to Mr. William Desmond, with several women working at a switchboard. The image highlights early telecommunications work in the 1920s. The photo from 1945 shows the Kronprinz Wilhelm, heir to the German Empire, being interviewed by a French officer. Just 28 years earlier, he commanded the 5th German Army at Verdun. Captured by Michael Wolgensinger in 1951, this photo shows two figures walking towards each other on a long, empty road near Cádiz, Spain. The serene rural scene highlights the vast open landscape. Sandra D. Reed and her sister, both born with albinism, used their platform to educate the public about the condition. Sandra became a renowned sword swallower and was awarded a Guinness World Record in 1977 for her skills. Ballerinas rehearsing at the Bolshoi Theater in Moscow, 1963. The image captures the intense preparation and dedication of dancers in one of the world's most prestigious ballet companies. An M1340 tank parked next to the Rome headquarters of the Republican Fascist Party in Piazza Colonna, 1943. The image captures a moment of Italian military presence during World War II. On March 29, 1951, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were convicted of espionage for passing atomic secrets to the Soviet Union during and after World War II. Their trial became one of the most sensational in American history. Emma de Berg, a famous tattooed lady from the late 1800s, and her husband Frank toured as one of the first tattooed couples in sideshow performances. Known for her detailed tattoos of Renaissance art and religious iconography, a member of the Scottish regiment, the Lovat Scouts, enjoys a cold drink after a 4-day march through the mountains in Jasper, Alberta, 1944. The image captures a moment of rest after an intense journey. A priest marries a couple in a church destroyed by German bombing in London, 1941. The image captures a poignant moment of resilience during World War II. A Japanese paratrooper from the 2nd Raiding Brigade, Taishin Shudan, prepares for the mission to Burauen Airfield on December 6, 1944, as part of Operation Tae. The photo from an Imperial Japanese newsreel captures the tense moments before the operation. On January 15, 1942, a self-defense instructor from the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, WAAF, demonstrates a technique to fight off an attacker. The photo captures a practical training session during World War II. In Sicily, July 1943, a Canadian soldier interrogates two Italian prisoners of war, likely from a coastal division. The photo captures the tense moments during World War II's Italian campaign. On September 7, 1945, damage crews extinguished the flames after a P-47 squadron belly-landed at Central Field, Iwo Jima. The photo captures the aftermath of a tense moment during the World War II. In 1965, actress Honor Blackman posed with a Solex bike in Cannes, France, while filming moment by moment. The image captures her charm and the stylish, iconic bike of the era. Australians inspect an M13/40 tank abandoned after the chaos of Operation Compass in North Africa, 1941. The capture of these tanks shocked many, as the tanks were originally considered near invincible. In 1935, the Japanese heavy cruiser Suzuya sits in dry dock at Yokosuka Navy Yard with a clear view of the immense power and craftsmanship involved in its construction. This ship was later part of the heavy battles during World War II. A 1932 photo shows a Japanese sniper positioned in a nest in Shanghai, China, ironically decorated with advertisement posters. The stark contrast between the serene imagery and the violence unfolding makes the scene striking. This 1959 photo shows Fidel Castro with his 26th of July movement fighters after coming to power in Cuba. The image marks a pivotal moment in Cuban history, symbolizing revolution and defiance. On February 25, 1921, the Red Army marches through Tbilisi, Georgia, during the Soviet invasion. The photo captures the overwhelming presence of Soviet forces as they took control of Georgia. In June 1944, aboard the USS Monterey, CVL-26, Navy pilots played basketball in the forward elevator well. The jumper on the left is future U.S. President Gerald Ford, captured by Lieutenant Victor Jorgensen. James Dean, captured in 1954, uses a Rolleiflex twin-lens reflex camera while casually smoking a cigarette. This photo showcases his relaxed yet iconic style. In November 1916, Canadian artillerymen wrote an early holiday message, Xmas Greetings from Canada, on a shell for their 60-pounder field gun at the Somme front. The image captures the dark humor and morale-boosting effort during World War I. David Hamilton Jackson, a labor rights advocate, stands in St. Croix around 1915. The car displays the Danish flag, as the island was part of the Danish West Indies before being transferred to the United States. Joe Biden takes the oath of office as the youngest senator in U.S. history at the age of 30, representing Delaware in January 1973. This pivotal moment marked the beginning of his long political career. A young couple poses together at a nightclub in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, during the 1950s. The photo captures a moment of joy and style from the era. A dinner party at the Hotel Astor in New York City, 1904. The lavish event shows the opulence of the time, with guests dressed in tuxedos and enjoying fine dining. Gruinard Island, heavily contaminated with anthrax during World War II, was used for biological warfare experiments involving around 200 tons of the deadly substance. In 1986, the island remained restricted due to the dangerous contamination. Soviet troops advanced during the Battle of the Dnieper in 1943, crossing the river as explosions erupt around them. The image captures the intensity of one of the largest battles of World War II. Fred Rogers, best known as Mr. Rogers, is seen here on his high school yearbook committee in 1946. The photo captures a young Rogers working alongside his classmates. Scenes of coastal houses destroyed by the 1970 Bhola cyclone in East Pakistan, highlighting the neglect by the West Pakistani government under Yahya Khan. The devastating aftermath fueled the Bangladesh independence movement. An autochrome shot of Bombay, now Mumbai, India, taken in 1913. The image offers a glimpse into daily life and the vibrant community during the early 20th century. In 1928, Lithuanian Jews in Švėkšna, Lithuania, welcomed authoritarian President Antanas Smetona with a banner in both Lithuanian and Hebrew. The image highlights the complex interactions between the Jewish community and the state's leadership during that era. The Bartini Beriev VA-14, a unique Soviet submarine hunter, is shown here in 1970s Russia. It was designed for anti-submarine warfare with the capability of flying and landing on water. Marilyn Monroe in a costume test for the film We're Not Married on January 11, 1952. The dress, designed by Eloise Jensen, features a Mississippi sash as she prepares for her role. Queen Elizabeth II reviews sailors from Papua New Guinea in 1954, marking the first time a reigning monarch visited Australian soil and territories. This event took place in Canberra, with the men belonging to the Royal Australian Navy. Workers in protective suits move outside the 3 Mile Island plant in Pennsylvania after the March 28, 1979 accident. It became the worst accident in the history of commercial nuclear power in the United States. The image shows British troops advancing through a street in Lebanon during the period of British occupation shortly after World War II. Following the end of the war, Winston Churchill ordered forces to intervene as tensions over the changing post-war order. The Spirit of Australia, a jet-powered hydroplane designed by Ken Warby, set the water speed record in 1978 at 511.11 kilometers per hour. This record still stands, with only 2 other recorded attempts to break it, both resulting in fatalities. This photo shows a Schwarzlos machine gun squad during the Battle of Isonzo on September 3, 1917, a key engagement on the Italian front during World War I. The men are equipped with machine guns and supplies for the battle. Soldier from the Soviet Red Army on the front lines during the Winter War. Captured on New Year's Eve 1941 after fierce fighting in snowy conditions. Austro-Hungarian soldier in a trench listening post, 1917. The crude ersatz bayonet attached to his Mannlicher M 1895 rifle was made from a twisted piece of steel. Refueling at sea before joining Task Force 50 for Operation Galvanic, 1943. Photo by Victor Jorgensen. A Canadian soldier plays the violin for his comrades outside their wartime dugout in 1917. The moment captures a brief escape from the horrors of war, offering a rare glimpse of humanity in such a grim setting. Jane Mansfield celebrates her daughter, Jane Marie's 8th birthday with a Halloween-themed party in October 1958, despite her actual birthday being in November. The unusual choice of theme adds a quirky twist to the celebration on Sunset Boulevard, California. American sharpshooters of the 28th Infantry take cover and scan for enemies in Bonvillers, France, on May 22, 1918. The image captures the tension and precision required in the brutal realities of World War I combat. The German Stahlhelm, a highly engineered helmet, was designed to offer superior bullet protection while being practical for soldiers. Its innovative shape influenced helmet designs in future wars, with variations like the Austrian-Hungarian version also produced. A giant stuffed African bull elephant is transported to the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh in 1976. The massive display was part of an impressive exhibit, catching attention due to its unusual transport. The Zalestriki rail bridge, connecting the Second Polish Republic and the Kingdom of Romania, stood as a major structure in the late 1930s. Once a popular holiday destination, the bridge was destroyed by the Soviets in 1941. This 1934 mugshot shows Oskar Dirlewanger, an infamous SS officer who was convicted for the rape of a minor. Despite his conviction, high-ranking Nazi officials intervened and had the charges dropped. A young Abkhazian woman holds a Russian AK-74 assault rifle at a funeral in Gudauta, September 1993. The rifle belonged to a man who was killed in the brutal fighting during the war in Abkhazia. Portuguese deserters gather outside the Amsterdam police headquarters during the colonial war, November 7, 1969. Their presence marks a moment of defiance as many fled the conflict in search of refuge. French officials examined documents at the DRV Tonkin Palace after its capture in 1946. The scene captures a moment of inspection following a significant political shift in post-colonial Vietnam. A young Joseph Stalin in March 1910 captured in his mugshot at Bylov prison in Baku, Azerbaijan. This image reflects a pivotal moment in his early revolutionary activities before rising to power. Aged about 25, Reza stands beside Dutch Consul General Fridolin Marinus Knobel in Tehran around 1902, working as his guard and horse groom long before he changed history. Reza would go on to seize power in 1921 and found the Pahlavi dynasty. Wolfgang Kapp, a prominent Imperial Prussian minister and founder of the German National People's Party, in a WWI-era portrait. Known for leading the 1920 Kapp Putsch, he became a precursor to the rise of the NSDAP and other far-right movements in interwar Germany. Yukio Ozaki, a 94-year-old Japanese politician, reacts in bed after learning of his first electoral defeat in his 26th election in 1953. The image captures a rare moment of defeat for a man who had been a towering figure in Japanese politics. A family of 9 poses together in their living room in 1970, with the mother holding the youngest child. The photo captures a moment of warmth and togetherness in a busy household. A young woman works as a school bus driver in North Carolina during the 1950s, overseeing children as they depart from the bus. The photo captures a snapshot of post-war American life and early school transportation. Kurdish women stand together in Iran near the former Russian frontier in the 1960s, their presence part of a long-standing struggle for equality and recognition under a state that tightly restricted women's rights and Kurdish identity. A collective prayer takes place at a religious gathering in Moscow on October 28, 1992, with a banner warning against receiving the Mark of the Beast, 666. The image captures a fervent moment of faith in a sect, militants of the self-proclaimed Chechen Republic of Ichkeria, CHRI, in 1996, posing with weapons during the Chechen conflict. The image reflects the intensity and resilience of the fighters involved in the brutal battles for independence. On March 26, 1958, the U.S. Army launched Explorer 3, the second successful satellite in the Explorer series. It confirmed James Van Allen's theory, revealing the presence of radiation belts trapped by Earth's magnetic field. Scott Carpenter participates in a water egress training session in 1960, preparing for his Mercury Atlas 7 mission. The training, conducted off the coast of Pensacola, Florida, simulated emergency conditions with up to 10-foot swells, ensuring astronauts' readiness for emergency landings. Soldiers of the 16th Regiment, 1st Infantry Division of the U.S. Army, pushed towards Omaha Beach under heavy fire on June 6, 1944. The iconic image captures the brutal reality of D-Day as they brave the assault to secure the beachhead. German soldiers walk past burned-out trams on the streets of Stalingrad in 1942. The photo captures the devastation of the city during one of the most brutal battles of World War II. Finnish soldiers drive a captured Soviet T-26 tank down the streets of Petrozavodsk in October 1941. The scene reflects the harsh realities of the Winter War as Finland gained temporary control of the area. German soldiers and officers captured by Soviet troops in Germany are gathered at a collection point in May 1945. The image captures the moment of surrender as the war in Europe nears its end. Polish soldiers of the 1st Armored Division ride in an American M3A2 armored personnel carrier through the liberated city of St. Nicholas, Belgium, in September 1944. The image captures a moment of triumph during the liberation of Western Europe. A portrait of Abram B. Burnett, the Native American chief of the Potawatomi tribe, taken in the 1860s. Burnett, known for his leadership, is remembered through Burnett's Mound in southern Topeka, Kansas, which is named in his honor. The Czechoslovak armored train, Moscow, originally named Prague II, became a symbol of post-Wapłantu's Czech military influence. After the war, it was infamous for marauding expeditions in the border regions of Poland, nearly sparking a Polish-Czechoslovak war in 1945. The image shows Checkpoint Charlie in Berlin in August 1960, before the construction of the Berlin Wall. The sign marks the boundary between the American sector and the rest of Berlin, symbolizing the growing division of Germany during the Cold War. On March 27, 1941, Yugoslav officers staged a coup in Belgrade after the government joined the Axis powers. The next day, citizens rallied, shouting, "Better war than the pact," marking strong anti-German sentiment. A then and now photo showing the 2nd Battalion Monmouthshire Regiment during the fighting in Bocholt, Germany on March 29, 1945, along Münsterstrasse. The modern-day image contrasts the historical scene of the battle with a peaceful street today. On March 26, 1944, Soviet troops under Marshal Ivan Konev's command crossed the Prut River, advancing to the USSR Romania border for the first time during World War II. This was a significant psychological victory, marking a turning point in the war. U.S. Marines collect swords and small arms during the Japanese surrender on Honshu in September 1945. Most of the captured weapons were destroyed, but many swords were kept as war trophies by American servicemen. A man stands amidst the ruins of the Los Angeles alligator farm after it was damaged, with a fallen sign in the background. Once a popular attraction featuring hundreds of alligators, it was a quirky part of early LA culture before modern theme parks took over. A U.S. chopper door gunner rests after a mission in Vietnam, 1965. The photo, taken by Larry Burroughs, captures the exhaustion and emotional toll of war on soldiers. The Fox Theater in Pomona, California, promotes its newly installed refrigeration system in 1932. The marquee highlights the films Love is a Racket, starring Douglas Fairbanks Jr., and Hello Trouble with Linda Basquette. British South Asians protest against neo-fascists in London following the murder of Altab Ali in 1978. The image captures their solidarity in the fight against racism and violence. Armed guards stand at the gate of Fort Ali Masjid, Khyber Pass, circa 1890s. The photo captures the fortified and strategic nature of this key location between Afghanistan and British India. Croatian soldiers from the 101st Brigade celebrate the success of Operation Storm and the recapture of the Serb-occupied Krajina region in August 1995. The moment reflects the culmination of a key military victory during the Croatian War of Independence. German soldiers search for partisans in a Bosniak village in 1943. The image captures the tense and dangerous nature of the partisan warfare during the Axis occupation of the Balkans. Pope Pius XII meets with soldiers during World War II. There are claims that he considered forming a Catholic bloc of nations, including Ireland, Portugal, Spain, Greece, Bulgaria, and Latin American countries, to protect the Church from communism and liberal democracy. Maria Rasputin, the daughter of Grigory Rasputin, lived in America where she worked as a dancer and lion tamer in a circus. She passed away in 1977 in Los Angeles. In 1900, a sealed cave, Mogao Caves in China, was discovered containing 1,100 scrolls and 15,000 Buddhist texts. It was sealed in the 11th century and held the earliest printed book, a copy of the Diamond Sutra from 868. An American magician in the 1900s performed as a Chinese man for his show, never breaking character in public. His last words after a trick went wrong were, "Oh my God, something's happened. Lower the curtain." Walking speed is influenced by who we're with. Men slow down by 7% when walking with women they're interested in, while women walking together move the slowest. Men walking with male friends move faster than either man's preferred pace. Japan's largest organized crime group, Yamaguchi-gumi, is worth $80 billion. By comparison, Sinaloa, Mexico's biggest drug cartel, is valued at $3 billion. In 1976, a Japanese ultranationalist porn actor died after crashing a plane into a Yakuza Don's house. This act was in retaliation for the Don accepting bribes from Lockheed and betraying the samurai code. The Mponeng gold mine in South Africa is the deepest in the world, reaching 2.4 miles below the surface. Illegal miners in its deepest areas stay underground for months, causing their skin to turn gray due to lack of sunlight, earning them the nickname ghost miners. In 1915, Charles Hatfield convinced San Diego to pay him $10,000 if he could end their drought by creating rain with a secret chemical mix. The result was the worst flood of the 20th century for the town, occurring just a few days later. In 1975, 90% of Icelandic women went on strike for a day, causing nationwide disruption and propelling Iceland towards significant gender equality reforms. In the 1950s, monkey love experiments showed infant monkeys preferred a soft, non-food providing surrogate over a wire one that dispensed food, highlighting the importance of comfort over nourishment. In 1934, a woman bought Hawk Mountain to stop the shooting of hawks and created the world's first raptor sanctuary. She faced armed hunters with no electricity or running water, and now it leads global raptor research. The loudest sound ever recorded on Earth was the eruption of Krakatoa in 1883. The Indonesian volcano ruptured sailors' eardrums 40 miles away, and people 3,000 miles away heard it as a distant roar of heavy guns. The hair was collected from an Aboriginal Australian man in the early 1900s, but it was left forgotten for decades in a museum drawer. Scientists later unlocked its secret, revealing one of humanity's most incredible survival journeys. In January 1934, the Domino Sugars plant harbor froze solid enough for people to skate. The coldest February on record followed, with temperatures averaging 20.2 degrees Fahrenheit and a 26-inch snowstorm. Shakuntala Devi, known as the human computer from India, computed the 23rd root of a 201-digit number in 50 seconds. On June 18, 1980, she multiplied two 13-digit numbers in 28 seconds to produce a 26-digit result, setting a Guinness World Record. Swansea Jack, a black retriever from Newfoundland, Canada, in the 1930s, is credited with saving 27 people from drowning during his 7-year life. He was named Dog of the Century in 2000 for his heroic deeds. The image depicts 13-year-old Iranian volunteer Hassan Janju during a battle in the Iraqi marshes during the Iran-Iraq War. The image shows a woman sitting next to a pile of money with $1 million in cash. She worked for City Federal Savings Bank, and this photo was taken in the 1950s. It is now owned by Getty Images, a French postcard from the early 20th century showing a prisoner bound in a net in Congo. It's a disturbing reminder of colonial violence. This photo shows Libby Prison in Richmond, Virginia, taken in April 1865. It was notorious for holding Union prisoners during the Civil War. The photo shows German soldiers in Lapland, 1943, entertaining their comrades by performing in skirts and bras. It's a rare, humorous moment captured during the war, showcasing the soldiers' attempt to lift morale in a harsh environment. This photo captures Vincenzo Peruggia, the man who stole the Mona Lisa in 1911. He walked into the Louvre, removed the painting from its frame, and calmly left, all without encountering any security or visitors. This photo shows a Kansas water wagon in 1900, used to transport water for farming and crops. The wagon was pulled by horses, with a team of 4 people managing it, offering a glimpse of life on the American plains over a century ago. In this 1944 photo, a French mother and child are seen resting after reaching safety behind the front lines in Normandy. The mother is taking a moment to comfort her child in the back of a horse-drawn cart, seeking refuge from the chaos of war. This 1880 photo captures a wagon train making its way down Main Street in Telluride, Colorado. Oxen-drawn wagons line the street, showcasing the town's rugged and pioneering spirit during the Wild West era. This 1922 photo shows the damaged gates of a Dublin courthouse with an armored vehicle used by the Irish Free State forces during their attack. The destruction highlights the intense conflict of the Irish Civil War. This early photo shows the Beatles before their global fame, performing as a young band. It captures a time when they were just beginning their musical journey, still in their formative years. This 1910 photo shows the 10-inch battery of Fort Riff in Kronstadt, taken by G.M. Danilov. The heavy artillery guns stand on their platforms, ready for defense, showcasing the military strength of the Russian Empire. This photo shows Alan Shepard, America's first man in space, preparing to wear his Navy Mark IV spacesuit. The image captures the historic moment before his flight, marking a milestone in space exploration. This 1991 photo shows a group of people during an investigative reenactment with Andrei Chikatilo, the notorious Soviet serial killer. The chilling moment captures the tension of the scene at the investigation site. This 1900 photo shows Wright's department store in Grand Junction, Colorado. The bustling interior reflects the early 20th century retail experience, with neatly organized goods and workers tending to the merchandise. This 1862 photo shows Kathy Williams, an African-American woman who disguised herself as a man to serve as a soldier during the American Civil War. She became one of the few women to officially enlist and fight in the war. This photo shows an American classroom in 1900 with rows of children attentively seated while the teacher stands at the front. The traditional setting reflects early 20th century education before modern schooling practices were established. This 1890 photo, taken in London's Whitechapel district, shows an exhausted young woman who has fallen asleep at her desk after hours of making matchboxes. At her feet, her baby rests peacefully on the floor, highlighting the difficult working conditions of the time. This photo captures the rare snowfall in Miami on January 19, 1977. A family stands proudly in front of a car covered with snow, marking the unforgettable moment when the city experienced its last snowstorm. This photo captures a dramatic moment from the Romanian Revolution on December 24, 1989, in the center of Bucharest. A man runs with an assault rifle, surrounded by people in a tense and chaotic scene during the uprising against the communist regime. This 1930s photo from France shows women participating in a beauty contest where only their eyes are visible, as they wear masks covering the rest of their faces. The unique event highlights the era's fascination with unconventional beauty standards. This photo from 1967 shows the devastating aftermath of a tornado that struck Western Europe, affecting France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. The destruction is widespread, with collapsed buildings and debris scattered throughout the area. This 1850s photo shows an antique stereoscope, a device used for viewing 3D images by creating depth perception. It represents a significant piece of early photographic technology, offering a glimpse into how people experienced imagery over a century ago. Anne Frank, a Jewish girl from Germany, hid with her family in the Netherlands to escape Nazi terror. She was eventually captured, sent to Auschwitz, and later Bergen-Belsen, where she died of typhus. Her diary became famous worldwide. In 1919, after the River Stour flooded in Nayland, Suffolk, a bus became stuck in the water. A horse and cart were used to help rescue it, capturing a unique moment of early 20th century ingenuity in the face of a natural disaster. Harriet Tubman, an iconic figure in American history, escaped slavery and fought against it as a social system. She helped rescue around 70 enslaved individuals through the Underground Railroad, becoming a symbol of courage and freedom. In 1952, North Korean prisoners of war perform a quadrille dance in an internment camp in South Korea, with a replica of the Statue of Liberty in the background. The scene captures a bizarre and ironic moment in the midst of war and captivity. In the 19th century, a strange and morbid job known as resurrectionists or body snatchers emerged. These individuals exhumed corpses from graves so that future medical students could study anatomy on the bodies. This 1890s photo shows the Fieldbrook stump, a massive tree stump in California, with a group of people posing on it. The size of the stump, along with the crowd of people, highlights the enormous scale of the tree that once stood there. This photo captures the terrifying moment of the September 11, 2001, attacks in New York City. People are seen running as a massive cloud of debris and dust from the collapsing Twin Towers engulfs the street. In 1965, a Soviet plane delivered New Year trees to a remote collective farm in Kazakhstan. The scene captures the festive spirit, with locals riding horses and camels to receive the holiday trees. On August 4, 1962, following Marilyn Monroe's overdose and subsequent death, this notice was posted on her front door by the police. The photo was taken at her Los Angeles home, where she passed away, marking a tragic moment in Hollywood history. This haunting 1928 photo shows an American man moments before his execution in the electric chair. As he sits, awaiting the lethal shock, a priest gives him his final blessing, capturing a chilling moment in history. This 1911 photo shows the apartment of Vincenzo Peruggia, the man who famously stole the Mona Lisa. He took the painting from the Louvre and hid it in his home for over 2 years, making it one of the most infamous art thefts in history. I would appreciate subscribing to the channel. I review interesting historical photos every day.